Zara had been dreaming of this moment for years. After endless night shifts and double shifts at the hospital, she finally saved enough to give her family something special, a dream vacation to Zanzibar. She wanted everyone together again, laughing by the ocean, watching the sunset, forgetting all the small fights and cold silences that had built up over time. She imagined her mother smiling, her brothers teasing each other, and the whole family finally feeling close again. When she told them about the trip, everyone cheered. Her siblings couldn't stop praising her. "Zara, you're amazing. You think of everyone," they said in the family group chat. She felt proud and happy, thinking maybe this trip would fix everything. But one evening, as she sat in her small apartment packing her suitcase, her phone buzzed. It was a new message in the same group chat that had once been full of excitement. Her sister-in-law wrote, "Hey Zara, we think it'll be better if it's just couples this year. You understand, right?" For a few seconds, Zara didn't move. She read the message again, her heart sinking. The same people whose bills she once paid, whose problems she always helped solve, were now uninviting her, from the trip she paid for. She tried to laugh it off, but her hands trembled. That night, she couldn't sleep. The trip she thought would bring her family together had suddenly shown her how far apart they really were. A week before the long-awaited trip, Zara woke up early, her heart full of excitement. She had just picked up her travel documents the day before and was counting down the days. Everything was ready, the flights, the hotel by the sea, the boat tours, even matching t-shirts she had ordered for everyone. She wanted everything to be perfect. As she made herself a cup of tea, her phone buzzed with a message from the family group chat. Smiling, she opened it, expecting to see jokes or maybe pictures of packed bags. But instead, her smile slowly faded as she read the words, "Hey Zara, we think it'll be better if it's just couples this year. You understand, right?" For a moment, she thought it was a joke. She even laughed softly and waited for someone to send a laughing emoji. But no one did. The chat stayed silent, except for a few "yes, that makes sense" messages from her siblings. Her chest tightened. How could they say that? The same people whose rent she had paid, whose school fees she had helped with, were now cutting her out like she didn't belong. She scrolled through the messages again, hoping she misunderstood. But it was clear, they didn't want her there. She tried to call her brother, but he didn't pick up. Her mother finally answered, speaking softly, saying, "Zara, don't overreact. It's not personal. You can always join another time." Another time? Zara sat on the edge of her bed, her tea untouched, her hands shaking. She remembered how hard she had worked for this trip, every night spent on her feet in the hospital, every time she skipped something for herself just to make this dream happen. Tears filled her eyes, but she stayed quiet. She didn't reply in the group chat. She didn't argue or beg. She just sat there, her heart heavy, realizing that sometimes the people you love the most can hurt you the deepest, and still expect you to understand. The next few days were some of the hardest for Zara. Her mother kept saying, "Don't overreact, my daughter. It's just a trip." But those words felt like salt on an open wound. How could she not feel hurt? This wasn't just a trip, it was something she had planned with love and paid for with her own sweat and sleepless nights. Yet now, everyone acted like she didn't exist. Her sister-in-law even sent laughing emojis in the group chat, joking about couples-only vibes, and tagging others in posts about beach outfits and matching swimsuits. They all seemed so happy, sharing pictures of their shopping and talking about beach body goals, and what they do in Zanzibar, as if Zara had never been part of it at all. Zara stayed quiet. She didn't type a single word. Every time her phone buzzed with new messages, she felt a little sting in her chest. She would open the chat, scroll for a second, then lock her phone again. She didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing her upset. Instead, she kept her pain tucked behind small smiles at work. Her patients saw her as the same calm, kind nurse. No one knew that every smile she gave was hiding a heartbreak. At night, she lay awake thinking about all the times she had shown up for them, how she paid her brother's rent when he was struggling, how she helped her sister's child with school fees, how she always made sure everyone was okay, even when she was tired and broke herself. And now, the same people had pushed her aside without guilt. But beneath the quiet, something inside Zara began to change. The more they laughed, the more she realized her silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. They thought she would stay quiet forever, but what they didn't know was that Zara was planning something. Something that would teach them that kindness isn't foolishness, and that you can only take advantage of a good heart for so long before it learns to protect itself. 3 days before the trip, while her family was busy posting countdowns and outfit pictures, Zara sat on her bed with her laptop open and a calm expression on her face. She had spent nights crying, but now her tears had dried. She wasn't angry anymore, just clear. Every booking, every payment, every detail of that vacation was under her name. She had done it that way to keep things organized. And now, that small decision would change everything. She took a deep breath, picked up her phone, and started making calls. Her voice was calm, polite, and firm. "Hello, this is Zara Adeyemi. I'd like to request a refund for my group booking," she told the resort manager. When they asked for details, she gave them everything they needed without hesitation. "Yes, please cancel all reservations under my name." The woman on the other end paused, surprised, but followed instructions. Next, Zara called the airline. She spoke with the same professional tone she used at work. "Please process the refund to the same account used for payment," she said, as if she were talking about something as simple as a shift schedule. Each call gave her a strange sense of peace. It wasn't revenge, it was closure. The tour agency confirmed the refund would take a few days, and Zara thanked them softly. By the time she hung up the last call, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. Outside, Lagos was buzzing with life, traffic horns, street vendors calling out, but inside her small apartment, everything felt still. She made herself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and smiled faintly. For once, she wasn't doing something for others. She was protecting her own peace. Her phone lit up with new messages from her family's group chat, full of excitement about only 3 days left. Zara looked at the screen, then put her phone face down. They had no idea that their dream vacation was already gone. And for the first time in a long while, she felt no guilt, only quiet satisfaction. The morning of the trip finally came, and Zara's family was full of excitement. They arrived at the airport dressed in matching white outfits, ready for photos and Instagram stories. Her sister-in-law wore oversized sunglasses, her brother carried a camera, and their mother smiled proudly. They had planned everything perfectly, or so they thought. They laughed loudly in the check-in line, already talking about the view from the resort, the seafood dinners, and how this year's couple's trip was going to be unforgettable. But when it was their turn to check in, everything changed. The airline attendant typed their names, then frowned slightly. "I'm sorry," she said, checking again. "These tickets appear to be cancelled." Zara's brother's smile vanished instantly. "What do you mean cancelled?" he snapped, leaning over the counter. The attendant calmly repeated, "The tickets under this booking were cancelled 3 days ago, and the refund was processed." The family exchanged confused looks. "There must be a mistake," her sister-in-law said, her voice shaky now. "We have to be on that flight." But the attendant only shook her head politely. People behind them began to stare as frustration filled the air. Her mother tried to calm everyone down, but even she looked lost. They stood there, surrounded by their luggage, their matching white clothes suddenly looking less glamorous and more ridiculous. At that exact moment, miles away, Zara was sitting quietly by her window, sipping her morning coffee. Her phone buzzed with a new notification, "Refund processed, $9,200 credited to your account." She smiled gently, took a deep breath, and closed her eyes. There was no anger left in her, just peace. Meanwhile, at the airport, chaos continued. Calls were made, voices were raised, but nothing could be done. Their dream trip was gone, and so was their chance to fix what they had broken. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, Zara's silence spoke the loudest. That same evening, while her family argued at the airport, Zara sat at home scrolling through flight options. She could have stayed angry, could have cried again, but she didn't want to waste another tear. She had spent too much energy on people who didn't value her kindness. So, with one calm decision, she booked a last-minute ticket to Cape Town. No group chat, no explanations, no goodbyes, just peace. As the plane took off, Zara looked out the window and watched the city lights fade beneath her. For the first time in a long while, she felt free. There was no guilt, no pretending, no pressure to make anyone happy. Just her. When she landed in Cape Town, the air smelled of salt and sunshine. The sea shimmered in the distance as she rode to her villa, a beautiful, quiet place facing the ocean. The moment she walked in, she knew she had made the right choice. Everything felt calm, warm, and safe. That night, she unpacked her things slowly, enjoying the silence. She ordered dinner for one, fresh seafood, soft music playing in the background, and a bottle of wine waiting on the table. As she poured herself a glass, she caught her reflection in the window. She looked tired, but peaceful. She smiled and whispered softly, "They took me out of their plans, so I made new ones." After dinner, she stepped out onto the balcony, the breeze brushing her skin. The moonlight reflected on the waves, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years, contentment. For once, she wasn't the one fixing things or giving more than she received. She was simply living, breathing, existing for herself. Somewhere far away, her family was learning a hard lesson. But here, under the Cape Town sky, Zara was finally learning something beautiful too, that peace is the best revenge, and sometimes walking away is the beginning of everything good. It didn't take long before Zara's phone began to ring. The first call came just as she was finishing her dinner by the sea. It was her mother. She ignored it at first, thinking maybe it was a mistake. But then another call came, and another. Her screen lit up with messages one after another, her brother, her sister-in-law, even cousins she hadn't heard from in months. She sighed, picked up her phone, and opened the family group chat. There it was, "Zara, please, we're stranded. The tickets are cancelled, the hotel says the rooms aren't booked, and we don't have enough money for new ones. Please help us." For a moment, she just stared at the screen. The same people who had laughed at her were now panicking. Her mother sent voice notes, her voice trembling, saying, "Zara, please don't let your family suffer. You're better than this." But Zara wasn't being cruel, she was finally being fair. She had begged for love, for respect, for inclusion. They gave her silence and mockery. Now they were the ones waiting for her to save them, just like always. She smiled softly, not out of pride, but peace. Then she typed one short message, "Maybe it's better if it's just couples this year, right?" She pressed send, put her phone on the table, and listened to the waves. After a moment, she stood, walked outside, and stepped barefoot onto the cool sand. The moonlight danced across the ocean as the tide rolled in and out. The air smelled of salt and freedom. She closed her eyes, lifted her face toward the sky, and took a deep breath. Her phone buzzed again in the background, but she didn't reach for it. She let it ring and fade. For the first time in her life, Zara chose herself without guilt. The same beach that once felt like a dream for her family was now her sanctuary alone. As she walked along the shoreline, her footprints washed away with each wave, but her peace, her quiet victory, was finally permanent. A week later, Zara was sitting on the terrace of her seaside villa, wearing a light dress and sipping coffee as the morning sun warmed her skin. She had spent her days exploring Cape Town, walking through markets, watching sunsets, and learning to laugh again. Her phone stayed mostly silent, except for a few kind messages from colleagues who noticed she looked happier in her photos. She didn't know that her peace was about to turn into something much bigger. That afternoon, a friendly travel vlogger staying at the same villa struck up a conversation with her. They talked about travel, work, and how solo trips can change your life. When he learned a bit of her story, his eyes widened. "Wait, you paid for a family trip, and they uninvited you?" Zara laughed softly and nodded. He couldn't believe it. With her permission, he recorded a short video, showing her smiling by the ocean and telling her story in simple words. "This is Zara, the woman whose family uninvited her from her own trip, and now she's living her best life." The video went viral overnight. Millions watched, shared, and commented. People called her strong, graceful, and inspiring. "This is what self-respect looks like," one comment said. Others wrote, "She didn't lose a family trip, she found peace." Zara didn't expect the attention, but she smiled as messages poured in from people around the world who said her story gave them courage to stop letting others walk over them. Back home, her family wasn't smiling. They were still stuck, trying to find a way back after spending what little they had left at the airport and cheap hotels. The same people who once laughed at her were now watching her name spread across social media. While they faced silence and regret, Zara was living freely, walking along the shore each evening, her story now belonging not just to her, but to everyone who had ever been excluded, hurt, or underestimated, and chose peace instead of pain. In the weeks that followed, Zara's life began to change in ways she never imagined. The viral video continued to spread, gaining millions of views and countless shares. People from around the world began sending her messages, some thanking her for inspiring them to set boundaries, others sharing their own painful stories of being used or disrespected. Zara read every message with a quiet heart. She never wanted fame, but she felt something inside her shift. Maybe this was her new purpose, to turn her pain into something powerful. Soon, brands began reaching out. Travel companies wanted to collaborate with her. Lifestyle pages wanted interviews. Even airlines and resorts offered her free trips in exchange for sharing her story. For the first time, her kindness was being appreciated instead of taken for granted. She accepted only the offers that aligned with her values and decided to build something meaningful. That's when she created her new platform, Pay for Peace. On her first post, she wrote in simple, heartfelt words, "When they uninvite you from the table, build your own resort." The post blew up instantly. People loved it, not just because of the message, but because it came from someone real, someone who had been through it and risen gracefully. Her page became a space where people learned about self-worth, financial boundaries, and emotional peace. Zara used her new influence to help others, showing that saying no is not selfish, it's strength. As she began traveling more, speaking at events, and sharing her lessons, Zara realized this was the life she was meant to live. She was no longer the woman who begged for a seat at the family table. She had built her own, surrounded by strangers who became supporters, and pain that turned into purpose. Her story wasn't just viral anymore, it was a movement. And each day, as she woke up to the sound of the ocean, she smiled, knowing she had finally paid for peace, and it was worth every penny. Months passed, and Zara's life looked completely different. She was traveling, working with brands, and running her growing platform, Pay for Peace. Her confidence glowed quietly, not in a loud or showy way, but in the way peace makes a person beautiful. She hadn't spoken to most of her family since the airport chaos, though her mother sent the occasional message asking her to come home or let the past go. Zara always replied kindly but never opened the door too wide. She had learned that peace sometimes means keeping your distance. One evening, her brother called and said the family wanted to meet for dinner. "No drama," he promised. "We just want to talk." Zara thought about it for a long time before agreeing. That weekend, she walked into the restaurant dressed simply, her calm presence turning heads as soon as she entered. Her family was already seated, all smiles but with eyes full of guilt. They spoke awkwardly at first, trying to act normal. Her mother complimented her glow, her sister-in-law mumbled something about how well things turned out, and her brother tried to joke about the trip. Zara just smiled and listened. She wasn't there for revenge, she was there for closure. When the table finally fell quiet, she looked around, her voice soft but steady. "You know," she said, "I want to thank you all. Thank you for uninviting me. You helped me find myself." The table froze. No one said a word. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, her brother looked down, and the silence grew heavy. Zara reached into her bag, placed her share of the bill on the table, and stood up. "Take care of yourselves," she said gently. Then she walked out into the night, her head high and her heart light. Behind her, the family sat in silence, faces full of regret, hearts full of the lessons that came too late. And as Zara stepped into the cool night air, she smiled, knowing she had finally closed that chapter for good.